From the EPR Creation Studio, this is Jason Staples bringing you Unconquered with Doc Staples. As always, this podcast brought to you by EPR Creations, bringing you the best of internet marketing and website development for an affordable price, by Luis Marquez of Momentum Realty in Jacksonville, Florida, by Shenandoah Newsma of shenrealestate.com and the Research Triangle, and by Garage Makeovers, the #1 garage remodeling company in South Florida. Here to do the Hot Takes Edition episode after Florida State beats Virginia Tech at home to go 5-1 at home on the season. All 5 wins at home. 4 of the 5 losses on the road for Florida State this year. And honestly, this one was pretty ho-hum. It's pretty much as expected in this game. And I mean, in our very short preview, we said 38-13, wound up 34-14, and largely because they didn't finish some drives in the red zone, wound up with a couple field goal attempts where they should have scored touchdowns. And this was just a pretty slow game. I mean, crazy thing. These two teams had a total of 8 drives apiece. Wow. 8 drives total. Florida State scored on 6 of their 8 drives in this game and missed a field goal in the first, and then ended inside the Virginia Tech 10-yard line and ended the game with the ball going in. This was a very efficient offensive performance from Florida State. Now, they did get a little help at one point with a penalty that allowed them to extend a drive that was going to wind up with a punt. I think that was actually an uncatchable ball. They got kind of bailed out on that pass interference, and then got fortunate again on a offsides penalty that allowed them to convert inside the red zone, convert a touchdown instead of a field goal. So this game, it could have gone a little bit closer on a couple things, or it could have gone, they could have wound up scoring touchdowns on a couple of other, on at least one other drive where they did kick the field goal. So, I think this is just basically what we expected. Virginia Tech, not real good defensively, not especially good offensively. And, Florida State took advantage of that. Now, here's the thing. In terms of yards per play, Virginia Tech actually outgained Florida State in this game, 6.2 yards per play to 6.1. So as efficient a performance as this was for Florida State offensively, this is yet another example of this defense just not being anywhere near where you would hope it would be at this stage of the season. And it really just seems to me that teams have kind of figured out what Tony White's doing defensively, and they don't have a whole lot of answers for that. Kyron Drones is not a good quarterback in terms of as a thrower. Still went 10 of 18, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 125 yards, and a few of those were just too easy. And then the bigger problem is, that Kyron Drones can't really throw the ball, and you give up 41 carries for 238 yards, 5.8 yards per carry. They gave up 8.4 yards per carry on 12 carries for Marcellus Hawkins, their back. Now, there's a 40-yarder in there, sure. But still, even if you take that 40-yarder out, you're looking at 11 carries for 61 yards. So that's 6 yards a carry, basically, even without the long in there. And Kyron Drones, 18 carries, 79 yards. And there were a number of times where they had him dead to rights and just didn't finish the job. And I think one thing is painfully obvious at this point in the season, and it's that they just aren't very athletic at linebacker. And, the linebacker position has been a real weakness for them in this, through the meat of the schedule, as teams have kind of figured out how to pick on those guys. And then, just in general, the back end of the inside of the defense is not real strong. Safeties, linebackers need to get better. And this is not an especially good tackling team on the defensive side. Once again, too many times where Virginia Tech backs or drones as the quarterback make contact and fall forward, make contact and break a tackle. Too much of that. Now, again, you look at Florida State, 5.2 yards a carry on 46 carries. And ultimately, the big difference in the game, you look at 6.2 yards per play for Virginia Tech, 6.1. Well, why was it 34-14 and pretty comfortable for Florida State in the second half? And it's because of Deuce Robinson. Deuce is a guy that, he gives Florida State a trump card that other teams normally don't have, and they don't have answers for in the back end. 6 catches, 134 yards, 1 touchdown. Had that touchdown on the long of 50. And, honestly, should have caught one of the other fade routes in the end zone there. Didn't, but, it's the nature of the game. I think at this point, Castellanos is kind of locked in on him. I mean, of the 13 completions, 6 of them went to Deuce Robinson and 2 were on tap passes to Jalen Lucas. So, 6 of 11 real passes went to Deuce Robinson. And of those others, one was a screen pass to Singleton. Another was a dump off to Royda Williams. And then you had another that was, you finally had 2 others that were to Luane McCoy and Randy Pittman. I mean, you had 2 essentially completions to anybody of real throws to anybody other than Deuce Robinson and 6 to him. This is a bit of a problem for Florida State's passing game. And a bigger problem, honestly, watching this game, is that Castellanos as a passer is significantly worse right now than he was to begin the year. And, honestly, I think Tony has gotten to his throwing motion. There were times early in the year where, he would sidearm things or he would spin a little bit and, that arm would whip across and down a little bit. And okay, it's one thing to do that a little bit, under certain circumstances where you're changing your release point or whatever. But at this point, he's just gotten super sloppy and the mechanics are killer. I mean, he missed Luane McCoy on an easy touchdown over the middle on that first drive where they missed field goal. And, if I'm McCoy, I'm furious that I got overthrown on that. I mean, that was an easy throw on the vertical and he just flat out dirted it. Just straight up the field, airmailed it right into the dirt. Similar one in the end zone when he was going for Randy Pittman on a little double move in the end zone. And I mean, I have no idea where that ball was thrown. I mean, it was a bit of a mystery why he missed by 4 yards. I mean, it wasn't close. I mean, his misses are way outside the strike zone right now. And, that's a problem. Now, on the plus side, he had 7 carries for 45 yards and got out of a few potential sacks because I do think he looked like he's starting to get a little bit of his spring back in his legs. Looked today like he was able to plant off that right foot for the first time since he got it rolled up on against Kent State. So moving into the remainder of the season, the final 2 games, that bodes well for being able to run what you want to run against an NC State or Florida. Because, I mean, look, you can't ask him to go back and throw 45 times and expect to win either of those games. But if you can really expect him to be that kind of a threat as a runner, now you can potentially score enough points through that threat against those teams. Now, the downside, of course, is that NC State went out and got shellacked today by Miami of Florida, which, you would have hoped that they would have saved their abnormally, unusually playing over their heads, out of their minds game for that game against Miami of Florida. But apparently they were saving all their powder for Florida State this weekend on Friday night. And of course, this is a short week for Florida State. Going to have to heal up quickly after this game and then go to Raleigh and play that game on a Friday night. So you've got you're one day short and it's a travel week. So that makes it hard. And you're going to play an NC State team that, year in, year out, I guess every other year when you go up to Raleigh, they're going to be a problem because that just has been a house of horrors for Florida State. And then, of course, you're going on a short week with a banged up offensive line and, on a Friday night. Great. Either way, good to see Florida State actually put a team away the way that they were supposed to, take care of business, and, win comfortably, despite the fact that they gave up really altogether too many plays. But, I think the primary difference here, 2 turnovers for Virginia Tech, and then Florida State, the reason they won by 20 is they converted those 2 turnovers into points, into 7 points in the one case, and then into a field position change in the other. There's your difference, basically. Florida State, every opportunity they had, except for that first drive where you had the missed field goal, they scored. And Virginia Tech, INT, field goal missed, touchdown, half, fumble, touchdown, then the final 2 turnover on downs as the defense finally bowed up in the fourth quarter once they had a healthy lead. So, pretty straightforward. Not a whole lot more to talk about there. I'm not going to get into the questions about Mike Norvell's future or anything right now. Just honestly not interested in the soap opera part of this right now. But it will be interesting to see whether or not they're able to get a win here at some point to get bowl eligible in these last 2. I do think that that Florida game is going to be very difficult on the road against a Florida team that I think has improved over the course of the season, and scared Georgia and scared Ole Miss this week. And I think they're better than Florida State up front. I think they've got some scary playmakers out wide, and Lagway is the kind of quarterback who can get hot, which has been absolutely the thing that will kill Florida State, that has killed Florida State this season. So that doesn't look good. Of course, NC State also, and they've got a quarterback who also can get hot. So you're going to have to find a way against one of these 2 in order to make a bowl. Both of those games are potentially winnable, but you're going to have to find ways to stop the pass and get pressure on those quarterbacks. And both of those have been issues over the course of this season. So we'll see. But either way, good win for Florida State. Right on, very close to the number in terms of what you expected the outcome to be. Not quite as good on defense, other than the 2 turnovers as you would have expected against this Virginia Tech offense. But the Florida State offense, very good tonight on the whole, very efficient, despite very poor passing from Tommy Castellanos as a whole, 12 of 24. And 50% really doesn't tell the whole story about how inaccurate he was on the evening. But again, that's kind of what we're going to expect. And I really dislike the way that Florida State coaches its throwers, but we'll revisit this again probably after the season. All right, well, that'll do for now. Thanks as always for those who are supporting. Thanks to the sponsors. I'll talk to you again soon, most likely with the preview for the NC State game. Talk to you then. This has been Unconquered with Doc Staples. Thanks for listening. If you've been enjoying this podcast, please leave a 5-star rating over at Apple Podcasts and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Post and repost episodes on social media and tell a friend. And if you haven't left a review in a while, do it again. It really does help the visibility of the podcast. Before we go, I'd also like to thank my advertising partners once more. That's EPR Creations, Luis Marquez of Momentum Realty in Jacksonville, Florida, Shenandoah Real Estate in the Research Triangle of North Carolina, Garage Makeovers, the #1 garage remodeling company in South Florida, and Justin Galloway of Benchmark Mortgage, serving Florida, Tennessee, and Kentucky. You can also stop by the Unconquered Shop at unconqueredpodcast.com, where you can buy stickers, pins, magnets, t-shirts, and other swag. I am especially grateful for those of you at the Dynasty level. That is Brian Leininger, Dave Blair, Jack Horton, Jonathan Kennedy, Lee Caswell, Travis Smith, and Tyler Kashishki. You all are far more generous than I deserve. Thanks to you all. This has been Unconquered with Doc Staples. I'm your host, Jason Staples. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your support. I made this.